curve, a big favorite of economics textbooks for good reason. The production possibilities curve, or frontier as it's sometimes called, turns out to be a very simple way to illustrate four very important economic ideas. First, it's another demonstration that economics is based on the idea of scarcity, of trade-offs. So imagine a fictitious economy somewhere that makes only two goods, pizzas and robots. For the sake of clarity, economists like to make their models as simple as they can, and it doesn't get much simpler than this. Anyway, this economy's only two goods are about to be put up on a table, which represents the trade-off between them. Devote all this simplified economy's resources to making robots, and let's say it can make 10,000 of them. But that means no pizza. Making just one pile of pizzas, the table shows, means making fewer robots. And as more pizzas are made, the possible number of robots is further reduced, down to a situation of all pizzas and no robots at all. Put the different combinations on a graph and you've got the production possibilities frontier in action. So if you're willing to go without pizza entirely, that's 0 down here on the x-axis, but you can make a full 10,000 robots here on the y-axis. So production possibility A up there. Possibility B involves making at least some pizza, on the table 100,000 pies. But that means we only have the resources to make 9,000 robots as well. There's also possibility C, possibility D, and this frontier ends down at possibility E. 400,000 pizzas, no robots at all. The picture looks the same for any two products. The author of The Economy Today, Brad Schiller.
If we want to look at production possibilities at work in a real setting, just look at the issues that the United States is facing right now. Every public opinion poll shows that Americans want more homeland security and more national defense, without question. Democrats, Republicans, everybody wants it. But where are we going to get it? I mean, think about it. If you're going to deploy, say, our police forces to guard buildings and bridges and airports, what are they going to stop doing? We're making a difficult choice.
So why don't we simply hire more police?
It would be wonderful if we had more police. We already have 640,000 police officers in this country. And sure, we could get more, but where are we going to get them from? We have to take them out of some other industry. We're having the same problem with the war in Iraq. We have to call up tens of thousands of National Guardsmen who would otherwise be producing goods in the civilian sector, teaching schools, working in construction, working as accountants. These are the National Guard who are weekend warriors. Suddenly we take them out of their civilian jobs in order to strengthen our national defense. We're making a choice. We're moving resources from the production of butter, civilian goods, to the production of guns, our national security.
It was after World War II that economic textbook writers started using guns and butter to illustrate that there was a trade-off between consumer goods like food and military hardware. The reason behind the trade-off, as Brad Schiller says, is that you have to use finite resources like land, labor, and raw materials to make anything. Again, say, pizza and robots. If everyone in the economy is toiling away in the robot factory, there will be no one left for the parlor. Okay, that's the first lesson of the production possibilities curve, the economic notion of scarcity. Anything you make costs you the opportunity of doing something else with the same resources. That is, their opportunity cost. The second lesson of the production possibilities curve is a little more subtle, that the more you make of anything, the greater its opportunity cost. Go from making 0 robots to 4,000 of them and we get quite a payoff. What does it cost us in terms of pizza? The chart makes it clear, 100,000 fewer pizzas. Or to put it another way, minus 100,000 pizzas divided by 4,000 robots. So the first 4,000 robots cost an average of 25 pizzas per mechanical man. 4,000 goes into 100,000 25 times. Since it's minus 100,000, that means minus 25. The minus sign simply says this is a cost, a subtraction from what we had. But look what happens when we go from 4,000 to 7,000 robots. This time we only get 3,000 more metalheads. But to produce them, we still have to give up the opportunity of making 100,000 pepperoni specials. So again, minus 100,000 pizzas divided by a mere 3,000 robots, an opportunity cost of about 33 pizzas per robot. And when we go from making 7,000 to 9,000 robots, the extra 2,000 automatons still costs us 100,000 foregone pizzas. Therefore, the opportunity cost increases again. 100,000 pies divided by 2,000 cyborgs, 50 pies per Borg. Finally, the last segment of the production possibilities curve is the costliest in terms of orders from Domino's. The last 1,000 androids cost the economy the same 100,000 pizzas, but at a whopping rate of 100 pizzas per robot. And if you spend a little more time on this graph, you can see that the same increasing opportunity costs work in reverse. The first 100,000 pizzas cost 1/10 of a droid per pizza. The last 100,000 cost 4 times as much. Thus, the law of increasing opportunity cost. But what's driving it? Why is the production possibilities frontier concave to the origin, meaning it bows out from the place the two axes meet, like a cave or cavity? It's because things tend to cost more to produce the more you produce of them. Again, take the example of guns versus butter. Economist Cecilia Conrad explains.
At first, we can move the resources that actually tend to be better suited for producing guns. The people who are, perhaps really good at putting together, I'm not sure what it takes to produce guns these days, probably putting together electronic circuitry. We move those people first over to production of guns. So we can start producing guns at fairly low cost. But as we try to move more and more away from food towards guns, then we're going to eventually have to start to bring in the people who really spent all their life out on a farm somewhere farming and don't have any idea about how the industrial process works and aren't really adjusted to working on an assembly line. And so the cost of getting the extra gun production is going to start to get higher.
And that means?
And that means that we're going to have to give up more and more butter to get the same incremental addition of guns.
And similarly going
the other direction.
Another way to look at it is that you use your cheapest resources before any others. Or to use an old economics cliche, you pick the lowest hanging fruit first. Economist Jim Clark.
They go for what you can get most easily, for what has the lowest opportunity cost. When they talk about grabbing low-hanging fruit, no, it's just right there. You just reach up and grab it, and it takes hardly any effort. You didn't have to give up very much to get it. If you want the fruit at the top of the tree, you got to haul out this big ladder and climb all the way up, and then maybe you can still reach it up at the top, but it's going to take you 10 or 15 minutes to get it and a lot of equipment, and if you don't have a ladder yet, you got to build the ladder. So you want to pick the alternative that's got the lowest cost in terms of other things that you have to give up. So the low-hanging fruit's the stuff that's easy to get.
In other words, all producers start with the easy pickings. Now, there are arguments about how true this is in every case. For example, aren't computer chips cheaper the more you make? But in a competitive market, economics assumes that opportunity costs rise with quantity because of the low-hanging fruit phenomenon. So where are we? Thus far, the production possibilities curve, or frontier, has illustrated both the idea of trade-offs, that is, scarcity, you can't have it all, and the idea of increasing opportunity costs. There remain 2 more key points about the curve, but we'll get to them in the next video. Possibilities curve, or frontier as it's sometimes called. Thus far, we've introduced 2 of its 4 key properties. Scarcity, which means there's a trade-off or opportunity cost to anything you do or consume. More resources into making guns for, say, homeland security means less resources available to make consumer goods, like butter. Guns versus butter has been a cliche of economics for decades. Property 2 of the curve, the law of increasing opportunity costs. The more you want of anything, the more you'll have to give up of other things. There remain 2 more key points about the curve. Point number 3. An economy is always trying to produce on the curve instead of inside it. That is, imagine that the curve or frontier represents everything the economy can provide. say every possible good on one axis, every possible service on the other. If it uses the resources efficiently, the best way it can, then it'll be somewhere on the frontier. This much of goods, this much of services, or perhaps this much and this much. But now suppose there's unemployment. People sitting around who want jobs but can't get them. If working, they'd be providing goods and/or services, but they're not. So the economy at less than full employment is not producing as much as it could, but somewhat less, and thus finds itself inside the curve, not at maximum production. Economist Kent Ford.
One of the best examples of being inside the curve is the Great Depression. We had massive unemployed resources. We were way inside the curve with 25% unemployment. Some industries were operating at 20% of capacity. There was a great deal of misery. People were not making a living. They couldn't survive. An example of being on the curve or close to it would be World War II. There was a massive effort in that war. War production, tanks were being produced, airplanes were being produced, and everybody was working.
The strong with their willing muscles, and those less strong, but as willing, the braided schoolgirls, the white-haired grandmothers, the old young, the young old, working together in intimate harmony.
And working hard, working overtime, we were really pushing our maximum as far as our production possibilities.
Finally, here's the fourth and last point the production possibilities curve illustrates: economic growth itself. Growth means pushing the frontier outward. And that outward push is the goal of all economies, to get bigger and richer.
That curve will move out if we increase the factors of production, the things that produce goods and services, greater technology, better ways to do things. More human capital. People are more skilled and able to produce more. If companies invest in physical capital, if there are more machines and factories that produce, that will increase the production possibilities. And more people in the workforce, more labor, through either more people entering the workforce, greater labor participation rate, or more immigration will push that production possibilities curve outward.
So the curve was down here somewhere in the late 1700s, say, before the Industrial Revolution. But as we steadily came up with ways to produce more, we could have more of pretty much everything. In terms of the picture, we've been moving this curve up and to the right pretty rapidly ever since. Or as economists like to put it, we've been making the pie of everything we could possibly have bigger and bigger and bigger. So the production possibilities curve, or frontier, not only illustrates scarcity, increasing opportunity costs, and efficiency, producing on the curve instead of inside it, but the whole point of economics, to make us all materially better off.